Welcome to this week's version of FARMVERSATIONS. I call it FARMVERSATIONS because the most conversations that will be had on this platform will be conversations around farming, so farming conversations. Now, in this week's episode, I want to talk about the most asked question by most of the startup farmers, especially the poultry farmers. One of the questions I always get out there, the first question I'm always asked is that, how can I start? This one question is a little challenging to answer because with every different individual, what they always mean by how can I start may be a little different. Some may ask you how can I start, being that they have the capital, they have the housing, they have everything lined up. They just want to know how to source the birds and how to manage them. While others, when they ask you how can I start, they actually mean they need to start from scratch. They have nothing, maybe just the land, or don't even have the land as well, and now have to figure out everything from point of zero. Now, the difficulty in this can actually be answered by different questions depending on your perspective, different answers, sorry, depending on your perspective. For me, when you ask me how can I start, my take from that is that you need to actually know what point you are at first before you actually figure out how your start is going to be. The reason I'm saying this is because, one, when it comes to poultry farming, when you want to start, the first question that will always solve your answers is whether you have the passion for it. Passion is the first key starter for any poultry farmer, because along the way you are going to face challenges, you're going to face very many obstacles that if you are not ready and passionate enough about poultry farming, you may quit in the process of your farming venture. But if you are passionate enough and maybe start it off as a hobby, then at that point, you have your start already. So in most cases, I always advise people that if you want to start poultry farming, then the easiest way to start it off is from a subsistence level. When I say from a subsistence level, what I mean is that you starting off should not be your main occupation. You starting off your poultry farm should first be birthed by you loving poultry or loving chicken or loving turkeys. There are different types of poultry out there. You loving them and you loving taking care of them, and maybe using it as a source of subsistence protein, or just eggs for you to consume, or chicken for you just to consume in your household. Then once you go past the point of subsistence, then maybe now you can consider the business point of it. But I would love if someone would start from a hobby or from a passion and learn the challenges of actually taking care of poultry before you dive into the business aspect of it. Because when you settle for a business, in poultry business, then you have to accept that there will be possibility of losses, more so if you are not ready from the point that you are starting it off. So my first point for you to start your poultry farm is if you actually have the passion for it. Second, you need to figure out your capital base. And when I talk about capital base, I don't only mean the money, because we know poultry farming and poultry business will need you to have some kind of land or some kind of a poultry housing. When you talk about your capital, one, you have to figure out, do you have land to put in your chicken? And if you do you actually now have the housing to put your chicken in it? And if you do actually have housing now, you have to again consider, do you have the money to take you through the process of taking care of the chicken until the point that they are actually producing that you can sell into the market? Now, when it comes to land, 90% of the time, especially for the youth, you do realize that you do not actually get to own land so early enough, or you do not have the financial muscle to actually buy land and own it for your poultry farm. So in such scenarios, it is always easier for one to actually go into leasing land property within your area, or actually using family land if there will be no challenges with that. But I would advise, if you can lease, or just first of all use family land in order to avoid any challenges of actually pumping in too much finance into acquiring land that you intend to use for your farming business. The second bit of capital that I want you to consider is the possibility that the housing for your chicken may actually prove to be a little expensive than you actually intended initially. And when I talk about this is that there are other nitty-gritties that are considered when you're constructing your chicken house that may determine how much cost is going to be used in it. Now, because we know for any business, the first key is always to cut down costs. So from the point you are starting your poultry business, you have to actually consider the possibility that you are not going to use too much of your capital in the process of actually trying to construct your farm. So in that, I would advise that if you are setting up your poultry house, then one, you need to use the second-hand material, that is the iron sheets, for the walls of your poultry house. And the second bit is that for the roofing, I would advise you to actually go for new poultry housing to avoid any leakages, because with the leakages, again, you'll have very many challenges when it rains, and you will not love the result of what that brings to your poultry business. After constructing the housing, and considerably, hopefully, you get to save enough amount when it comes to the process of construction, then now you actually have to go into the possibility that you actually have to visit another farm that is actually doing poultry successfully, and you need to be there not just once, twice, or 3 times to actually get to know how the whole poultry management business goes about. Because with the poultry, it may not only just be keeping and selling, or keeping and collecting eggs and selling. There are other nitty-gritties that goes into the management of the poultry farm itself. So with that, you need to actually take into consideration that you need to take your time and visit an already established farm, have conversations with them. And this is one bit that I always advise. If you take your time to visit another poultry farm, you need to take your time and know that the farmer you are visiting also had to go through a learning curve. So if you are not going to buy from them from the word go, then you have to actually pay them some allowance for the time they're going to sit with you and take you through the business of managing poultry. It may be expensive in the first stages if you look at it, that you have to pay them for that, but it will save you a lot if they actually see that you are appreciating their time and will now be open with you and give you more information than you may even have thought you needed from the word go. After visiting another farm, that will actually give you an idea of how your poultry house on your farm can actually look like. So the designs that you will see there, you can use them to modify yours to fit the space that you have or the number of chicken that you intend to put in there. Now, after visiting this farm and having an exchange visit, or whatever you may term it, now you need to look at the numbers that you want to do. One, the numbers that you want to do, the number of chicken you want to put in your farm will actually determine the type of housing, the size of the housing, and actually the amount of money you're going to spend to take care of them to the point that they are producing enough to give you returns from your sales in the market. When it comes to these numbers, most farmers always go with the numbers of 30 to 50 to 60. Doesn't matter. If you are starting from a hobby, you can go as low as you want. But if you are starting from a point where it is going to be a business, then normally I hear out there when people say that it should be in numbers of 3s. By numbers of 3s, I mean in terms of 300s to 600 to 900. They say there is how it breaks down profitability. But the numbers game on that bit, I cannot really explain much of it. But what I would advise you is that if you are starting it as a business, depending on the breed you want to do, with the poultries, it is a numbers game. The higher you go, the lower your costs. The lower you go, the higher your costs. When I say this, what I mean is that because you will be doing vaccinations for your birds, and the vaccinations are always done in batches, not individual. So the higher you go, it means that the costs of your vaccinations will come down because the numbers are now distributed. The cost is distributed across the entire flock of your birds. But when you go for less, and say you are starting off with about 20 chicken, and from your 20 chicken you realize that there is no vaccine that is sold for 20 birds, but instead they are sold from 50 to 100 to 200 to 500 and onwards. There will be some sort of wastage in the bit of vaccine that is not entirely used for your chicken. So you have to take that into consideration as well. So it also depends on the breed that you want to do. With the breed, for most layers, I'm not good with the hybrid layer birds. I mostly just do indigenous and maybe the improved kienyeji, as we term it here in Kenya. For most of the layer birds, you have to go in form of volumes in order to bring down your costs and also actually realize profit. For the indigenous kienyeji, currently people start off with numbers of about 50 to 100 to 200, depending on how flexible you can be with your pocket, of course, and how much you're willing to spend on those chicken to actually give you something back. After discussing and actually knowing the number of birds that you want to start off your farm with, then now you have to consider the location of your farm. The reason I say the location is because it will actually help you determine the breed of birds that you want to keep. For most regions in Kenya, it is possible to actually do layers bird anywhere, because eggs and table eggs actually is a market that is insatiable in every part of the country. But it will be determined so far by how much you are going to spend in the feeding, which is again another aspect of this conversation that I will have in my next video in terms of costing and all that. But the breed will, and your location will determine the breed you're going to keep, because for example, where I am located, I am in the up country. I am not in close to any city. So the highest number of birds that people consume there are either the indigenous chicken or the improved kienyeji chicken. If I would try to go into broiler farming, then it would mean that my biggest market is actually in the cities, and that would involve me incurring other costs just to get my product from the farm to the end point where it's the cities. Again, locally in the upcountry areas, it is not very common for people to actually get to use the broiler chicken unless they have specific functions like weddings and burials and all those other ceremonies. Then they would consider that, because that would be quick, easy to get chicken, and also the pricing would be a little favorable. But for your area, if you are in cities, I would advise you not to struggle much with the indigenous kienyeji or the improved kienyeji chicken. I'd rather you just stick to broilers and do your volumes, because if anything, once you are in a high consumption area for chicken, then you need to go with the fastest growing chicken, which again are the broiler breeds. After your location and the numbers that you want to do, one thing you have to take into consideration as a poultry farmer that is starting up is that you actually need to network. And that is the biggest part that most farmers never really get. For you to be able to realize what the potential that poultry farming has, then you actually need to take into consideration that you cannot exist in the market alone. You need other farmers to be able to succeed. You need other marketers, and these are the traders, to be able to succeed. You need the poultry producers or the input providers, like the agrovets that are selling the, what are they called, the vaccines, the medications and all those, in order to succeed. You need the extension service providers from the agricultural offices in order to succeed. You need the vets. So at any point that you're starting a poultry farm, you need to be in all these spaces and active per se, because the moment you will experience your challenges, it's either a farmer that has experienced the same challenge that is going to offer you an easy solution, or it's either an agrovet or an input provider that is going to sell to you the product that you need to take care of your challenge, or it is a vet that you're going to call to your farm to offer you advisory services, or it is going to be an extension service provider to be able to help you in your marketing, or to connect you with any other organization out there that may be dealing with poultry and poultry production. So you really need to network heavily. And with the network, the funny thing is that once people know what you are into and what you do, then there is going to be growth for your enterprise as well. The more you tell people you are a farmer, the more your market grows. The more people know you're a farmer, the more your market grows. So once you're going into poultry farming, you have to consider that, one, be present and own it up. Be a poultry farmer. Everywhere you go, you have to mention, I have chicken, because one, your market always starts with your neighbors. The final thing I want to discuss for people who want to actually start poultry farming is that we as barbarian farmers, I as Dera Goat, we have a solution for you. One of the challenges people always have is that you start off your poultry farm. In the initial stages of it, it's so easy because you have the initial capital, you have the chicken, you have the birds ready, and you are really enjoying it. But as time goes by, you will realize that along the way, maybe the initial capital you had intended has subsided in a way, and now you are getting challenges trying to actually be able to sustain your birds as the time goes. And with that, you'll realize that most of the farmers most of the farmers that start off without being ready, along the way they get to stop, they get to stall, or have to sell their birds off in desperation and at a loss at the same time. So our solution to you is this. We have a cost calculator that can be implemented for the indigenous and the improved kienyeji chicken. Our cost calculator can actually give you the cost of feeding, the cost of vaccinations, literally the entire cost that you will be able to use for your chicken from the point you acquire them to the point that you sell them. And our cost calculator actually gives you calculations on how much you're going to spend on every single day, every single month, every quarter of the year, to the point your hens are producing or that they are market ready for table chicken. And with that, you can get in contact with us through our Facebook page, Barbarian Farmers Limited, or through my Facebook page, The Ragot, or through my Twitter handle at The Ragot and my YouTube at The Ragot. And we will actually be able to help you get our cost calculator that will help you plan ahead. Because with poultry farming, if you do not plan as well, you are going to fail definitely. And with our poultry farming cost calculator, we actually give you the recommended retail prices for your birds. And that means that you can actually be able to get, at every given point, you are able to get the cost that you've incurred on your chicken at the point that they are at, that is by age in days or months, and the recommended retailing price, supposedly that you find a customer that is ready to buy them at that specific stage. So that would really help you a lot. So get in touch and we will help you with that. And finally, once you have sorted all these things out, the biggest challenge for you would be where you source your birds. The reason this is important because there is an aspect of poultry farming that is called traceability. When I talk about traceability, what I mean is you need to be able to know where you get your chicks from. The hatchery needs to be able to know where they get the eggs from. The egg producer needs to know where they got their chicks from, and that would be the generation of the chicks that they're selling to you, or the generation of the chicks that they're using to produce their fertilized eggs for hatching. And once they are hatched, from the point they are at the hatchery, the vaccinations they're given. When you deal with us as Barbarian farmers and I as The Ragot, you will be able to realize that, one, we will be giving you pre-vaccinated chicks. And when I talk about pre-vaccinated chicks at the point of day old, what I mean is that they have been actually subjected to Marek's vaccination. And after that, we give you advisory on how to vaccinate your birds and training as well on how to vaccinate your birds to the point that they complete their vaccination schedule. And from that point onwards, the repetitive vaccinations that you need to do should you decide to keep your birds past the time that they are supposed to be sold for table eggs, table chicken, and you actually need to produce eggs in that. So where you source your birds is important, where you source your chicks is important, and we are here to offer you that solution, because once you reach out to us, we can be actually able to connect you with actual credible chicks producers, or we can actually supply you with very good quality and fast growing chicks that will help you overcome all these other challenges that are coming at you. So get in touch. Always be ready to have a conversation on farm or poultry, on anything that you need, and reach out to us in case you have a challenge or have questions. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you on the comment section, and also being able to engage with you in terms of poultry farming or farming in general. So stay tuned, and you're always welcome to FARMVERSATIONS.